Welcome everyone to the Thomson Reuters Answers On series from Davos 2020. Joining me on the balcony today, Katie Stein, Chief Strategy Officer at GenPact, and Brian Peccarelli, COO Customer Markets for Thomson Reuters. Very nice to see you both. Brian, you're a dab hand at this. Katie, welcome to you. This is your first time and your first Davos as well. What is the big standout, very quickly for you?
You know, there's actually a theme that's been coming through. Someone said it last night, which is outrage, optimism, and organize. And it's those three O's I heard, which is really people waking up to that we need to change. Yep. But actually the optimism here, that change is possible, and then how do we organize?
Interesting you say that, actually, waking up for the need to change. I mean, I'd like to think they've been waking up for the past few years to the need, and this year they're actually, for the first time, making the change happen. Do you get a sense that that is happening?
Davos, so first time at the conversations, but I do think I see it in our own client base, which is there's been a lot of discussion, but people are still trying to figure out, how do I make transformation real? And that's what I'm seeing, is a waking up that the time is here. Someone said yesterday, platforms as a service as an economy is here in the next 2 to 3 years. If we don't change now, we're disrupted.
Given, I'll come to you in a sec, Brian, but given this digital context, do you think most of your clients are ready to run their businesses, to lead their businesses in this fast-moving context?
So frankly, I think the answer is no. And I would say it the following way, which is we do a lot of research that shows us that where digital and AI is being used most systemically is in customer experience, but we're not feeling the effect of that in the economy. We're not feeling the effect as customers, business to business or end customers. And so I think that we still have a lot of work to do to make the return from those investments come through.
Would you agree with that, Brian? Just this idea that leaders of companies generally are not yet, one, digitally savvy enough, and two, aren't speaking to their digitally savvy people in the right way.
No, well, I think it's changing, and changing pretty fast. I mean, an awful lot of people I've spoken to here now have strategies, have plans. They do see the pathway on the platform and this and that to do it. They do see the pathway of using AI beyond kind of that customer experience and customer data points, which has driven success for companies that have utilized it, but you don't see the broader effect by doing that.
We talk about AI at scale in the enterprise, and that we're right at the cusp of AI at scale. But there's a lot that has to happen. You're starting to see
products and services being adopted using it now.
Yeah.
And I think we're at that scale point from, years ago. I've been here for quite a few years, and I think it's a tipping point that we're seeing scale and momentum. Two
main challenges that have to be overcome. One is, I think now, a blending of technical and other skills. So digitalization of an enterprise is not just about the technical skills, right? It's actually bringing the domain skills. It's bringing in all that knowledge. So I think organizations are really driving hard on how do you merge all that together in teams, and how do you make it real, not hype.
And what difficult maybe to say to do you have clients that don't have a purpose?
I think actually here at Davos, one of the things I've noticed and I've been commenting a lot on is actually the clarity of purpose and the way that it's articulated. So a company that's truly manufacturing diabetes medicine, its purpose, though, is in services of healthcare, in enabling a healthier life. Now, what they do today is truly manufacture a drug, but that clarity of what they want to be then opens up business model transformation. I hear a lot of that here. I think it's varied when you're out in the broader marketplace as to how clear and sharp that definition is for companies. And I think there are a lot of companies who are just trying to keep up.
Yeah. I mean, can you survive without a purpose, I guess is the question.
Well, and I think I agree, too. I think most companies and enterprises have a purpose. I think the difference varies how they've communicated it, both internally and externally. Is it actually known? Is it embedded into the culture versus just something that they went off-site and developed on their own? Yeah. And I think that's the difference right now we're seeing.
And I heard something to build on that was so interesting yesterday. They were talking about the future of the corporation, and they described it this way, which is for the last 40 years, we've started to run corporations as command and control. We're chief commanders, right? And therefore, we go off-site, we have interesting conversations, but we're still telling people what to do at the task level versus really a chief communicator where the purpose becomes the culture becomes what's the true north, and then employees are enabled to act. Very different.
I think that's the
mentality.
distinction. It's enabling and supporting employees to be innovative, to be creative, and to get on and serve customers.
What lessons have we learned about regulation and the way we've regulated over the last 10, 15 years?
I think it's very varied by industry. I do a lot of work in the financial crime space, and I think that we are, self-admittedly, 2 years ago, some of the regulatory bodies started to start innovation offices because they wanted to come and understand what digital was, what artificial intelligence could be. And self-admittedly, we're coming together at that point with industry. Industry was far ahead in terms of those concepts. So I think that regulation in some areas has actually been a laggard, which is holding back enterprise at scale adoption of these technologies.
Yep.
I also think regulation is while there's been a lot of it, it's also catching up. Technology has actually moved faster than regulation's
Agreed.
been able to catch up to it, and they're trying to keep pace, so I don't see it slowing down as the pace of change continues.
So let's take an example. Blockchain. Governments trying to keep up, regulators trying to keep up with the fast pace of change. I mean, that's dangerous if they can't.
Absolutely, and I have a number of friends actually who are in various government entities who've come and talked to me about blockchain to try and understand what it is. I mean, there's a very basic education that's needed. I think in some economies like China, they have embraced this concept and are going to push very, very quickly and very, very hard ahead in these technologies and get all of their regulatory ministries together around it. So I think actually from a competitive sense, we have to move faster in its speed.
The final question is about the skills gap and reskilling. Generally, how worried would you say, Katie, are your clients, first, about that gap, and second, about having to reskill workforces and whether they're, one, able to do it and capable to do it, and two, are prepared to pay for it?
Yeah. So actually, we do an annual survey called AI 360, and we just got the findings in 2 weeks ago, and this is a set of questions in that survey. Last year, a little more than half of the 500 CXOs that were interviewed said this was a top-of-mind issue and that they were actually actively doing something around reskilling. Interestingly, and we're digging into it, this year that dropped to 38%. Then when you combine the sentiment of the employees, interestingly, the concern at entry-level employees and mid-level employees is increasing in terms of what does this mean for me? And finally, the most interesting information that I found was men believe that reskilling in the digital world is more available to them. 65% believe it's more available to them than to women. And even more interestingly, women agree. Right? So I think we have a problem there we need to solve.
Okay, and I just want to throw one other final sort of tidbit in there, which came from the Edelman Trust Barometer. I mean, there were a lot of fascinating findings from it this year. One of them, though, was the most sort of trusting relationship right now is between employers and employees. The relationship employees have with their employers, and the trust there. Does that surprise you?
The most trusted, you said?
The most trusted.
Oh, well, I think there's a lot more conversation. Enterprises have gone through change, and a lot of them are in the back end of that cycle. As Katie said, the command and control environment of the past has changed. So as you start having more transparency, as you start having more conversation as you start investing in training and reskilling, even though there's further ways to go, I think it helps brings trust overall as you have a purpose.
Yeah.
You're building trust as far as an enterprise.
I couldn't agree more, and I think trust is a top agenda item and transparency, especially for organizations focused on culture. But when I saw those results, I sort of sat back and thought about it, and I think what it speaks to is a level of distrust in government today because we have governments that are actually alienating communities. And I think that is some of what's coming through as pervasive in that survey.
Okay, maybe it is more about that trust in government falling really fast, and the trust with your employer falling a little bit less fast.
I'm an optimist. I think I look to our enterprises are changing. Okay, and hopefully they're changing for the better for all their constituencies.
Right.
Yeah.
Employees being a big part.
All right. Look, I'm going to have to stop it there. To both of you, thank you very much indeed. Katie Stein from GenPact, Brian Peccarelli from Thomson Reuters. That's it for Answers On once again, Davos 2020. I'm Axel Threlfall.